us say something obvious: cheese is delicious. And let us also say it stands to reason that anybody at AEW would be interested in WWE main event talent, and of course anybody at WWE would be interested in AEW main event talent. If I run Miller and Friends and I compete against Johnny and Buddies, and I know that Frank from Media Sales is going to become available, I'm going to make a play to get Frank, because everybody knows if you get the F-man, your sales going through the roof. The reason I bring this up though is because recently it became the talk of the town again when there was a rumor that WWE was interested in FTR. And once again, of course you'd be interested in FTR. They are a terrific tag team. But then as these conversations do go, all of a sudden Bray Wyatt's name came up. And some people were like, well, why isn't he in AEW? Here's why. As ever from the mouth of Dave Meltzer, he of Wrestling Observer fame, which means someone somewhere just punched themselves in the head just because they heard his name, he responded someone to Twitter and he said, well, when it comes to old Bray, his asking price is pretty high. Now, we'll never know how accurate this is because it could just be one of those things that exists in the ether, but it does stand to reason. Because not only has there not even been one rumor about Bray Wyatt going to All Elite Wrestling, there hasn't been a rumor about him going anywhere. I mean, Ring of Honor, Impact, New Japan, there's nothing. This includes from the man himself too, and in fact, for a recently released wrestler, he has been as quiet as a mouse. Because usually what happens is a wrestler does lose their job and they go make a big song and dance about it, which they should do, they're perfectly allowed. And it's always on Talk is Jericho, let me tell you about TrueCar. While some people thought this was the worst thing ever, I actually say, good for Bray Wyatt, because do not forget when you go back to his WWE run, he didn't just come up with one terrific character, he came up with two, and the only reason he got released in the first place is because WWE booked these so badly, they forgot what they had. I mean, the cult leader could literally win no feuds, and The Fiend had to go through everything, including that Hell in a Cell debacle, and losing his Universal Championship to Goldberg in 5 minutes. That's right, we had an undead monster demon thing, and Bill ran through him like he was a slice of butter. There were some hints that Wyatt was going to be involved in a movie, and actually in UK news, he came over here for a wrestling convention. But other than that, your guess is as good as mine. I mean, maybe he's just done with wrestling for the time being, maybe he wants to pursue other opportunities, or maybe he just understands his worth and he wants to ensure that he earns a pretty penny. And that is a very important life lesson to take away from this video. Know your worth. Like, I'm not saying that's not really difficult, it is, because we're all dealing with imposter syndrome on some level, but if you have a skill and somebody wants it, make sure they give you what you deserve. I think another point of interest does come down to the fact, well, what would AEW do with him? I don't buy into this whole, well, they can't bring him in because AEW doesn't do spooky wooky stuff. Okay, then why do we have the House of Black and why do we have Danhausen? Like, Danhausen isn't scary, but he's still a guy walking around going, I'm a demon and I'm gonna curse you. I mean, it's not exactly normal. The Dark Order were also weird for a little while, and while something within me says that maybe you could put it with Malachi Black and friends, the other part of my brain goes, no, that feels too lame and that feels too easy. I mean, it kind of feels like it would put certain obstacles in the way that you shouldn't have to then try and get around. And maybe this is actually quite simple, and when you do break down the walls, AEW doesn't really need him. I mean, he is an asset, no doubt, and anybody would be lucky to have him, but when you start looking through the roster, I don't exactly know where he would fit into proceedings. I mean, it's quite a challenge to get everybody on TV to begin with, and while that doesn't mean you start turning people down, because that would be crazy, if Tony Khan can look at his cast of characters and go, hey man, I've got a bunch of holes to fill, I don't need anybody else right now, well then that sounds like a sound strategy to me, especially when if it does come to money and you can't come to the right terms. I mean, we also just signed up for a dual pay-per-view with New Japan, which is even more bodies. So even if you do find a gaping hole, you can just ring up Japan and they can send somebody over. As controversial as this is to say too, I actually sometimes think the best move for Bray Wyatt could be going back to WWE if they could hug and make up. Because if you did do that, he is a day one bona fide main eventer and can even be a champion as long as you treat him in the right way. I mean, look at SmackDown right now. Apart from Drew McIntyre, there is nobody ready-made to challenge Roman Reigns, whereas if Bray walked in the door and you actually let him win the championship to get rid of all his stupid stuff he's done in the past, or the stupid booking that he's had to suffer in the past, all of a sudden everybody would accept it, because by and large everyone loves Bray Wyatt. This somehow always sparks some people that go, yeah, but you can't do that because his in-ring work sucks. I'm like, What are you talking about? He is a perfectly decent professional wrestler. He's not the greatest one ever, but it's not just about the moves, it's about your persona, it's about the aura and the atmosphere. And when you handpick all these little details, once again, Wyatt has it in spades. You would have to question whether he does come back as Bray Wyatt or he's the Fiend. Although, to be honest, we're probably going to have to come up with a third face for him. Although if it's good enough for Mick Foley, it's good enough for anyone. But again, Vince McMahon's roaming circus right now is in desperate need of stars. And they kicked one out the door. The reason I don't think it will happen is because they are making so much cash at the moment. And if they were going to try and make a deal with Bray, I bet they'd offer him less than he was already making. That ties into everything that we've already spoken about. But if it did go down and he popped up on Friday nights, I tell you, I'd do a backflip and then I'd break my neck, but at least I'd be happy. What we also always do forget as well is the well-being of the human. We're so quick to take our own fingers and go, oh, he has to go there, he has to go there. We forget about the mental health side, and do not forget a few weeks ago, or a few years ago, months ago, whatever the hell it was, there were some rumours that Bray Wyatt may be going through some mental health stuff. Now, we should never speculate on this because we don't know, but doesn't it stand to reason, given that he lost Brody Lee, Luke Harper, whatever you want to call him, they must have been tight, they must have been friends. And to be honest with you, I don't know how anybody copes with that. It just must be horrible. But yes, if we are to believe the ruckus, maybe Bray Wyatt is asking for a 7-figure deal to come into a promotion, and so far nobody has wanted to spend that fee. And he's so creative, I don't even think it matters he's having all this downtime, because he will somehow use that to have the greatest re-debut ever, and with around about 1 week, we'll all be going crazy about him again. I also think that his best days are absolutely ahead of him, because not only does he have all this stuff in his mind, but he's also getting more and more experience. I mean, I talked to Kurt Angle recently, and he says it takes about 8 years before you hit your peak. So I think we should straddle ourselves in and hope somebody does get him to sign, because great things could be around the corner. Those are the details though, and no, I don't know anything about Cesaro. This always happens. People start talking about Bray Wyatt, and then all of a sudden the Swiss Superman is in the mix. I mean, it seems very, very accurate that WWE lowballed him on a new contract. He went, nah, bruh, I'm not doing that. But now we wait and see. However, I do like speculating, I do like fantasy booking, I do like predicting. So I have a funny feeling there will be a surprise at AEW Cross New Japan, and it will be the return of Cesaro to maybe an AEW ring, or maybe to an NJPW ring, or maybe both. And now something has happened to my throat. Maybe it's Bray Wyatt. Now, please do leave a comment below and let me know what you think about all of this. FTR, Bray Wyatt, Cesaro, WWE going to AEW, and AEW going to WWE, and the AEW New Japan show. That's what the comment section is for. Then like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Head on to whatculture.com where you can read articles like this with your eyes. Make sure you follow us on social media, and we have a ton Stone Cold other videos. Just watch half of one, that'll do. My name is Simon What Culture. Thank you for joining me as always. Make sure if you go out today and it's hot, you wear some sunscreen. I don't want you to burn. See you soon.